In the previous lecture, we created a distribution group for our iOS project. So far, of course, we haven't released anything just yet. That's going to be for a bit later. But what I want to do now is create the distribution group for our Android project. So just navigate over to the Android application over in App Center, navigate over to Distributes, and you're going to see exactly the same that we saw over on iOS. A Groups tab, a Stores tab, and a Releases tab. We of course have no releases yet. We're going to leave Stores for a bit later. For now, let's just create a new distribution group. And we're going to see something very familiar. We're going to have to name this group, let's say also beta testers. This is still not going to be public, and I'm going to invite the same person that I invited before. Again, I am just going to be adding one person in here, so I will just create this group. As you can see, indeed, in the Android group, there is no Devices tab. I can still see testers with that person listed, and the releases and the overview tabs are currently empty because we have no releases. But that's it, no Devices tab. That is because in the case of Android, we do not need to register the devices with Google for us to be able to install our application. We're still going to be securing it in some way, we're going to see that a bit later, but it doesn't require us to register the devices directly. In fact, if you navigate over to the configuration tab over here to the right, you're going to see that there is nothing else to be done but change the name and allow the app to be downloaded with anyone with link access. These two options were also available on iOS, but we saw a third option for us to allow App Center to manage the registration of the devices. So that is not present in here. So that is it. Our beta testers group is ready for Android now. That was quick. Now we can also see this QR code and everything, but what I want to do in this lecture as well is show you what is it that those users are going to see eventually when we invite them to a distribution group. So we've already invited this user to both our iOS and our Android projects. But so far, I haven't shown you how is it that they're going to be able to see these distribution groups or join these distribution groups if they have to accept the invitation. So let's jump over to my iOS device in here. And I'm already here in the invitation that I received. This is exactly what your users will see. As soon as you add them to a distribution group, you're going to see an invitation similar to this one. Perhaps already with an icon if your application has one, but essentially this. Someone from this particular organization invited you to test this particular application. In this case, I'm showing you the iOS version. I will show you the Android version in just a sec. So all they have to do is click on View App, and they are going to be navigated over to App Center. They will have to log in. In my case, I think I was already logged in, but as soon as they log in with some of their credentials, they are going to be able to see this, the list of releases for this particular app. This again is the iOS app. Of course, so far it has no releases, but eventually they will be able to see the releases that you generate right here so they can install. Again, we're going to be taking a look at that a bit later, but you can see how it is going to be very straightforward for your beta testers to navigate here and see all of your releases. So this is the case of iOS, very straightforward. Now for Android, we're going to see pretty much exactly the same thing, the same invitation, although in this case it is for another application. We can see the small Android legend in there. And if we go over to view the app, in this case I am still going to be navigated to App Center, although as you can see here on my Android device I hadn't signed in, so I will have to log in, and again in this case your user will have to log in directly. And as soon as I have done that, I am going to see exactly the same that I did on iOS. Although in this case, because this is the exact same application, if I go over here to the left and navigate over to all apps, I am going to see both of them. And I see another one over there to the bottom, but you see both the iOS and the Android applications be listed. Now in this case, since I am on an Android device, I see the applications that can be installed on this device and the ones for other platforms, but essentially this right here is what your users would see. And eventually when you have your builds ready, they can navigate to one of the apps and install that release. Of course, so far we have no releases right now. But that's it, we have successfully set both of our distribution groups. Now in the next lecture, we're going to start to configure the distribution of one of these applications directly from the test branch over to these distribution groups.